Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel NPA Discovery, the place where we go beyond familiar names, old photographs, and Hollywood legends to discover the complicated human beings behind them. Today, we are exploring the extraordinary, painful, and often misunderstood life of Martha Raye. She was one of the most recognizable comic performers of Hollywood's golden age. She sang with extraordinary power, performed with some of the biggest stars in entertainment, embraced television before many film actors took it seriously, and repeatedly traveled into dangerous military zones to support American service members. To audiences, she appeared fearless. She possessed a huge smile, an even bigger voice, and a style of comedy built around complete physical commitment. She was willing to distort her face, fall, shout, dance, sing, and become the joke if doing so made the audience laugh. But the woman behind that enormous public personality often felt painfully small. She married 7 times. She struggled with alcohol. She endured professional rejection, family conflict, serious illness, emotional crises, and a final relationship that worried many of the people around her. She could comfort frightened soldiers near a war zone, yet often seemed unable to comfort herself. The title of this video suggests that Martha Raye spent her life making America laugh while her own life fell apart. I agree with that description, but only if we understand it with compassion. Martha was not simply a tragic clown who entertained others and cried in private. That interpretation is too easy. It turns a complicated woman into another Hollywood warning story. Her life was also a story of courage, service, adaptation, gratitude, and survival. She repeatedly made destructive choices, but she also repeatedly returned to the world. She frightened airline crews with her drinking, yet boarded those planes because she believed frightened soldiers needed her. She experienced a life-threatening emotional crisis, yet later used public performances to express gratitude to the people who had helped save her. She struggled as a mother, but she became a maternal figure to countless troops who remembered her as far more than an entertainer. She was physically diminished in her final years, but the military service community continued to recognize the extraordinary scale of what she had given. Martha Raye was contradictory. She was generous and demanding. Strong and insecure. Disciplined in work and chaotic in love. Capable of caring for strangers while damaging the people closest to her. That does not make her impossible to understand. It makes her human. Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who enjoys stories from classic Hollywood, and subscribe to the channel. Your support gives us the motivation to continue producing thoughtful documentaries about the artists whose private lives were often far more complex than their public images. Now, let us return to the beginning, to a family of traveling performers, a child raised backstage, and a young girl who learned to earn applause before she had learned how to live without it. Martha Raye was born in 1916 into a family already shaped by performance. Her parents, Peter and Mabel Reed, worked in vaudeville. According to one popular account, Martha entered the world backstage during one of their engagements in Butte, Montana. Whether every dramatic detail of that story developed accurately over time is less important than what it represented. Martha was born into a life where performance came first. The theater was not an occasional destination. It was the family business, the workplace, and the environment in which identity was created. Her parents traveled, rehearsed, performed, and survived through entertainment. Martha and her brother eventually became part of an act of their own. For most children, play is separate from employment. For children raised in show business, the difference may disappear early. A child learns that smiling, singing, or behaving in a certain way produces approval. Adults applaud. Money arrives. The family continues working. This can create remarkable discipline and confidence. It can also create a dangerous belief that love must be earned through performance. Martha learned to entertain before she developed a conventional education. Reports later suggested that her formal schooling was extremely limited and that reading scripts could be difficult for her. If true, this would have made her professional achievements even more remarkable. Imagine working in an industry built on contracts, scripts, schedules, and instructions while carrying insecurity about reading. A person in that position may develop extraordinary memory, improvisational ability, and dependence on trusted people. They may also become vulnerable to manipulation. When someone fears appearing uneducated, they may pretend to understand documents they have not fully read. They may surrender authority to managers, spouses, lawyers, or business partners. They may use humor to prevent others from noticing their uncertainty. Martha's comedy was loud and physical, but beneath it was often self-deprecation. She made her own mouth, face, voice, and body part of the joke. Self-deprecating humor can be powerful because it allows a performer to control the audience's judgment. If Martha made the joke first, no one else could use it against her with the same force. But there is a difference between using insecurity as material and resolving insecurity. A comedian may learn how to make thousands of people laugh at a wound without ever healing it. From childhood, Martha received attention for being entertaining. The applause told her she mattered. But applause is temporary. It disappears at the end of the act. A child who depends on it may spend an entire life searching for the next audience, the next marriage, the next role, or the next dramatic reassurance that she is not alone. Martha's career would become a constant pursuit of that reassurance. Martha spent years working in nightclubs and minor stage roles before receiving her major opportunity. By the mid-1930s, she had developed a comic style that was impossible to confuse with anyone else's. She did not rely on delicate wit or quiet sophistication. Her comedy was physical, expansive, and unapologetic. Her eyes widened. Her mouth opened dramatically. Her face seemed capable of changing shape from one second to the next. She could sing with power and then destroy the glamour of the moment through a perfectly timed expression. In 1936, producer and director Norman Taurog reportedly saw her performing in a nightclub and recognized her potential immediately. Martha was brought into the film Rhythm on the Range, starring Bing Crosby. The role introduced her to movie audiences and quickly led to a contract with Paramount Pictures. Hollywood had found a new comic personality. Martha's large smile and expressive mouth earned her the nickname Big Mouth. The name became part of her brand. It was memorable. It was commercially useful. It was also reducing. Nicknames can create instant recognition, but they often simplify the person attached to them. Martha was not only a mouth. She was a singer, actor, physical comedian, improviser, and experienced stage performer. But Hollywood understood the value of one easily marketable feature. Audiences laughed. Studios repeated the image. Animators parodied her. Her appearance became part of popular culture. This is the moment many performers dream about, the point at which strangers recognize them and the industry wants more. But recognition can create a new prison. Once audiences respond to a particular quality, studios demand repetition. The performer becomes known for the face, voice, gesture, or character that first became profitable. Martha's exaggerated appearance gave her work. It also made it difficult for the public to imagine a serious inner life. This happens frequently in comedy. A comedian becomes associated with laughter so strongly that audiences resist seeing sadness. The public may assume the performer's personality matches the stage character. If someone can make a room laugh, people imagine that person must be emotionally resilient. In reality, comedians often observe pain closely because they understand discomfort. They know how people behave when embarrassed, rejected, frightened, or exposed. They transform those moments into relief. Martha's comic talent depended partly on understanding humiliation. She could make herself look foolish without appearing afraid. That is an extraordinary skill. But the ability to survive fictional embarrassment does not protect a person from real shame. Hollywood celebrated her confidence. Her private relationships would reveal how uncertain she often felt. Martha was only about 20 when her movie career accelerated. She was famous, financially productive, and surrounded by people who wanted access to her. But professional success arrived before she had developed emotional stability. This sequence is dangerous. A young person receives money and admiration but lacks the experience required to judge motives. Potential partners are attracted not only to the individual, but also to status, income, publicity, and opportunity. The famous person must determine which affection is sincere. That is difficult for anyone. For someone who already doubts her own worth, it can become nearly impossible. Martha became engaged to orchestra leader Johnny Torrance, then ended the engagement quickly. This impulsiveness became a pattern. She fell intensely in love. She imagined permanence. She moved rapidly toward commitment. Then conflict, disappointment, or disillusionment followed. Soon after one broken engagement, Martha married makeup artist Hamilton "Buddy" Westmore. The marriage lasted only a few months before ending in divorce, with serious allegations made during the separation. Over the next several years, more marriages followed. From the outside, the pattern looked reckless. Why would someone repeat the same decision so quickly? Why would a successful woman continue entering relationships that produced pain? The answer may involve more than romantic foolishness. Some people are not addicted to a particular partner. They are addicted to the emotional promise made at the beginning of a relationship. The beginning says, "You are chosen. You are desirable. You will not be alone." The wedding transforms uncertainty into ceremony. There are witnesses, photographs, promises, and legal documents. For a person with unstable self-worth, marriage may feel like proof. But proof created by another person is fragile. When conflict begins, the old insecurity returns. The individual then seeks another relationship capable of producing the original feeling again. Martha's marriages should not be reduced to a comic number. 7 marriages may sound like material for a joke, but behind each one was hope, impulsivity, fear, and the possibility that she believed the next partner would provide the security she had never developed internally. Her professional life rewarded speed. A performer had to seize opportunity. A nightclub discovery could become a film role the next day. A successful routine could change a career overnight. Martha may have applied the same speed to intimacy. She felt strongly, acted quickly, and dealt with consequences later. But relationships cannot be rehearsed like comedy scenes. A performer can change a line when the audience does not respond. A marriage exposes patterns that applause cannot fix. Martha was becoming one of America's most visible comic performers. At the same time, she was beginning a private cycle that would follow her for decades. Martha's comedy depended on a willingness to look ridiculous. She could stand beside glamorous actresses and deliberately destroy any competition over beauty. She could enter a scene with powerful singers or charming leading men and create disorder. Her mouth, expressions, timing, and voice allowed her to dominate attention even when she was not the central star. That ability made her a valuable supporting performer. She appeared alongside major figures such as Bob Hope, W. C. Fields, Abbott and Costello, and other leading entertainers of the era. But becoming the comic relief carries an emotional burden. The comic figure often protects everyone else's dignity by sacrificing her own. The romantic lead remains attractive. The hero remains competent. The comedian falls, misunderstands, overreacts, or becomes embarrassed. The audience feels relief because the comedian absorbs discomfort. Martha became exceptionally good at this role. She could transform humiliation into power. Yet repeatedly performing as the foolish or undesirable woman may reinforce private fears. An actor knows intellectually that the role is not reality. Emotionally, the boundary can weaken when the public responds mainly to the exaggerated version. Martha's nickname, caricatures, and parodies made her face a cultural object. Animators transformed her into comic animals or exaggerated characters. Audiences recognized the reference immediately. This was evidence of fame. It was also evidence that her appearance had become public property. Women in Hollywood already faced intense pressure to be young, thin, and conventionally beautiful. Martha survived by refusing to compete on those terms. She exaggerated the features that another performer might have tried to hide. This was brave and commercially intelligent. But courage in performance does not always mean confidence in private life. A person can own the joke while still fearing the judgment beneath it. This contradiction helps explain why Martha's public personality could appear enormous while her romantic choices suggested emotional dependence. She could command a stage. She could not always protect her boundaries. She could face a camera without hesitation. She sometimes seemed unable to tolerate the possibility that no partner was waiting when the performance ended. Comedy gave her control over the audience. Love remained uncontrollable. Martha's relationship difficulties did not exist in isolation. Her family life had been shaped by performance, instability, and financial dependence. At one point, her own father reportedly attempted to obtain financial support from her through legal action. For a successful child performer or young star, family money can become emotionally complicated. The child may feel gratitude toward the parents who helped create the career. The parents may feel entitled to the income because they contributed to the early work. The adult performer may struggle to distinguish love from financial obligation. When money enters family relationships, old roles become difficult to escape. The child may become the provider while still seeking approval from the parent. Martha's success gave her power, but that power did not necessarily feel secure. The lawsuit attempt may have reinforced the idea that relationships were connected to what she could provide. This fear can become devastating. A famous person may begin asking, would they remain if I lost the money? Do they love me or the life around me? Am I valued when I am not performing? The need to answer these questions can produce controlling behavior. If affection feels uncertain, a person may attempt to secure loyalty through money, authority, or emotional intensity. Martha later behaved in controlling ways toward her daughter. That does not excuse the behavior, but it helps us understand how patterns travel through generations. A child raised without stable boundaries may become an adult who confuses control with care. She may believe that protecting someone means making decisions for them. Martha's family history taught her that relationships could become transactions. Her career rewarded her financially, but the money did not create emotional safety. In some ways, it may have made safety harder to recognize. It is tempting to describe Martha as tragic. The evidence appears overwhelming. Repeated divorces. Alcohol problems. A life-threatening emotional crisis. Conflict with her daughter. Serious health decline. A controversial final marriage. Death after years of suffering. But tragedy is not the only category available. Martha also lived with unusual courage. She survived an entertainment industry capable of discarding performers quickly. She moved from vaudeville to nightclubs, film, television, advertising, and military entertainment. She performed beside major stars without surrendering her identity. She entertained troops during multiple wars. She survived a crisis that could have ended her life decades earlier. She continued working through illness. She inspired enough loyalty that soldiers and veterans remembered her long after the height of her Hollywood fame. Calling her tragic without acknowledging strength turns pain into the entire identity. Calling her heroic without acknowledging harm turns admiration into denial. The honest interpretation requires both. Martha was not a perfect servant of others. She could be difficult, impulsive, intoxicated, controlling, and emotionally destructive. She was also generous, brave, grateful, disciplined, and deeply committed. Human beings do not divide cleanly into admirable and disappointing parts. The same emotional intensity that made Martha magnetic may have made her relationships unstable. The same need to be useful may have driven both extraordinary service and relentless work. The same fear that encouraged her to board planes may have strengthened her dependence on alcohol. The same insecurity that fueled comedy may have made her vulnerable to unsuitable partners. Understanding a person means recognizing how strengths and wounds can emerge from the same source. And when someone you love appears strong, ask what the performance may be hiding. Martha Raye was not merely the woman with the enormous mouth. She was the child raised behind curtains. The young star who became famous before learning stability. The wife who confused commitment with safety. The mother who struggled to surrender control. The alcoholic trying to outrun fear. The patient saved by people who reminded her that she mattered. The entertainer who flew into dangerous places despite terror. The honorary soldier who became family to troops far from home. The aging woman whose body failed while her legacy remained contested. She made mistakes large enough to hurt people. She gave enough of herself to be remembered with military honors. She was not one thing. Neither are we. A human life cannot be summarized by its worst decision. It also cannot be justified entirely by its best action. We are the tension between the two. We are what we repeat, what we regret, what we repair, and what we offer before time runs out. Martha spent her life making noise because silence frightened her. But after the final performance, after the applause, after the marriages, and after the controversy, her story leaves us with a quiet truth: you do not have to entertain people to deserve love. You do not have to become indispensable to justify your existence. You do not have to hide pain behind competence. And you do not have to be perfect before your life can mean something. Martha Raye was deeply flawed. She was also deeply useful. She made people laugh when laughter was needed. She brought familiarity to people surrounded by danger. She entered rooms carrying energy when fear had emptied them. That is why the military stood beside her at the end. Not because she had lived perfectly. Because she had served courageously. Thank you for joining us for this journey through the life of Martha Raye. Let us know in the comments which part of her story affected you most: her Hollywood career, her complicated personal life, or her decades of service to American troops. Please like this video, share it with another classic Hollywood fan, and subscribe to the channel for more deeply human stories from behind the legends. And until next time, remember, the world may first notice your performance. But your legacy will be shaped by your presence. By whether you arrived when others were afraid. By whether you offered comfort when no applause was guaranteed. By whether you learned to see value in yourself before demanding that someone else prove it. Martha Raye spent a lifetime trying to make people stay. In the end, it was not a husband, a studio, or an audience that gave her the most enduring place of belonging. It was the community she had served. The soldiers remembered. The honors remained. And long after the laughter faded, the courage behind it continued speaking.